In the top stories, Governor General offers condolences to the Queen. Evacuation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines continues. Prime Minister moved to tears. And Prince Philip dies aged 99. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today's Friday, the 9th of April, 2021. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the following is a press release from Government House. His Excellency the Governor General, Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, GCMG CVO QCJP LLD, was this morning, Friday 9th April 2021, advised by Buckingham Palace of the passing of His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh and Consort of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. His Royal Highness was 99 years old. His Excellency the Governor General has conveyed our deep condolences to Her Majesty the Queen on the sad passing of His Royal Highness. Prince Philip accompanied the Queen on her royal visits to St. Kitts and Nevis in 1966 and in 1985, and as the personal representative of Her Majesty on the occasion of our 10th anniversary of independence in September of 1993. Prince Philip will also be remembered for the Duke of Edinburgh Youth Awards scheme, as several of our young people were inspired to undertake several character-building pursuits. Arrangements for the realms will be announced in due course. Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris has reached out and offered support to Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, and by extension the government and people in light of the Windward Island declaring a red alert and issuing an evacuation order following the evaluation of seismologists who warned that the La Soufriere volcano is displaying signs of an imminent eruption. The Prime Minister told ZIZ News, quote, "I pledge we will do the best we can at this time," end quote. The Prime Minister is scheduled to meet with the National Emergency Management Agency this afternoon to further discuss the support being offered. Prior to the evacuation order by Prime Minister Gonsalves, the island had been witnessing several days of heightened seismic activity. The National Emergency Management Organization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines said on Twitter that there was a subsequent prospect of disaster and warned residents to, quote, "be ready, get your things in order," end quote. NEMO also tweeted that, quote, "safe areas where people will be evacuated to are from North Union to Kingstown on the windward side of the island, Baruali to Kingstown on the leeward side, and the Grenadine Islands," end quote. A cruise ship from the Royal Caribbean Line was heading to the island to help with evacuation efforts, NEMO said. In 1902, La Soufriere erupted, killing about 1,600 people, most of them indigenous Kalinagos. Again, in April of 1979, it erupted with no casualties as the local population was evacuated. In other news, an autopsy was performed on the body of the 15-year-old boy Keon Richards from Crab Hill, Sandy Point, on April 7 by resident pathologist Dr. Adrian Nunez. Dr. Nunez concluded that death was a result of blunt trauma to the head due to multiple skull fractures as a consequence of severe head injury. Richards died following an accident where a tree fell on him. According to eyewitnesses, on Thursday, April 1, several children were playing a game of basketball on the Sandy Point hardcourt when a tree fell from the yard of the Pogson Medical Center, broke the wall fence, and fell onto the nearby basketball court. ZIZ understands that several persons were able to move out of the way, but Richards was struck by the tree. The emergency medical technicians took him to the Pogson Medical Center, where he later died. We now move to news on the regional scene. As evacuation measures continue in St. Vincent and the Grenadines due to the eruption of La Soufriere after 7 a.m. on Friday, and Vincentians are being welcomed to other Caribbean islands, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves is moved to tears. The emotional Prime Minister, in a press conference at about 10:30, expressed his gratitude to the many persons who have opened their homes to the evacuees.
I've spoken to one of the cruise line's leadership this morning, and I must tell you the way in which people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then ordinary people, and then Grenada, and then Dominica, St. Lucia, and Antigua have responded to put people in their homes, strangers, bring tears to my eyes. I love this Caribbean.
As cruise lines continue to offer assistance, Gonzalez says measures are in place for vaccinated and unvaccinated persons.
But Simone Kisa Beach tells me that what she wants to do is to, the chief medical officer, is that those who are vaccinated, she can get them going there on the vessel. Those on the ships, those who to go to particular destinations, they would, those who are not yet vaccinated but who would be vaccinated, you would want to send them immediately after vaccination. You'd want to hold them, keep them for a day or two.
That was Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves. More on this story as it develops. In other regional news, in Guyana, the continued reluctance of Region 10 residents to accept the COVID-19 jab continues to be a bugbear for the Health Ministry. However, the region's administration says it will be launching an aggressive education campaign geared at improving confidence in the vaccines. The details in this report from Tamika Rodney of HGP News.
Speaking during the daily COVID-19 update on Thursday, Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony registered his concern with the refusal rate of residents in Region 10 to be inoculated. He pointed out that this type of reluctance could result in a wider and faster spread of the virus, thus infecting more residents. The minister added that health authorities are currently engaging key influencers in the region to develop a plan to encourage more persons to get vaccinated against the potentially deadly disease.
Seeing that Region 10 is one of the regions that did not have a high uptake of vaccines, and we are working with different people in the region to see how we can increase that uptake. So it's an ongoing process, and I'm sure once people are convinced of the efficacy of these vaccines, that they'll come forward and get their vaccines.
This newscast sought to find out from the region's Vice Chairman Douglas Gittins the rationale behind the reluctance of the town's residents in accessing the jabs. According to him, the lack of proper education regarding the vaccines have resulted in the projection of conspiracy theories and myths regarding the vaccines, its efficacy, side effects, aims, and objectives.
That persons have come out and said that if you took the fileria pill, do not take the vaccine. So that's the next thing we have to help people eliminate out of their mind.
However, the Regional Democratic Council will be aggressively inundating the airwaves and social media platforms to ensure the much-needed education reaches the residents. The Vice Chairman believes that if more public officials in Region 10 access the vaccine, it would definitely inspire confidence and encourage the residents to follow suit.
Deputy, etc. If those cases are shown, telling the public that this is a good thing and that we want it to continue, and maybe take the vaccine on video or a still photo. These are some of the ways of encouraging people to take the vaccine.
The region has registered 744 COVID-19 cases since the start of the pandemic in March last year. Tamika Rodney reporting for the HGP Nightly News.
Internationally, the United Kingdom's Prince Philip, husband of Queen Elizabeth II, has died aged 99, Buckingham Palace said on Friday. It is with deep sorrow that Her Majesty the Queen announces the death of her beloved husband, His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, the palace said in a statement. His Royal Highness passed away peacefully this morning at Windsor Castle, the statement said. Further announcements will be made in due course, and the royal family joined with people around the world in mourning his loss, end quote. More in this report.
He was by her side throughout the longest reign of a monarch in British history. For Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, it wasn't only a marriage, but a life of service to his wife, Queen Elizabeth II. Born into Greek and Danish royalty, Philip had a lonely childhood. He was taken under the wing of the British aristocracy. When he married the then Princess Elizabeth in 1947, he was a promising young naval officer. It was a fairy tale wedding for a country emerging from war and hardship. It all changed for the young couple when Elizabeth's father, King George VI, died at only 56 years of age. She became queen, and Philip, in the words of his private secretary, looked as if the world had fallen down on him. His naval career ended along with his independence.
Prince Philip was sort of forced into making huge sacrifices. He was very much a man's man, not someone who was going to naturally fall into the position of playing second fiddle and walking 2 paces behind his wife and calling her ma'am in public and so on.
And so began life in the Queen's shadow. Hundreds of engagements a year. He did, however, manage to find time for his own charities, helping young people and conserving wildlife.
Very energetic, a problem solver, a sort of scientific cast of mind. So those were sort of, on the positive side, the attributes that people admired. Sometimes, though, his detractors would say that, some of his forthrightness could come across as rudeness.
Philip did have a reputation for embarrassing and politically incorrect remarks, whether he was being rude about the Chinese or Indians, or swearing at photographers, often a sideshow to formal occasions. Yet even though an air of racism hung over him, a staunchly royalist UK media generally forgave him.
He was certainly given a much easier ride than politicians. Politicians who tend to make a racist or an offensive remark in this day and age tend to have to apologise a couple of days later because there's so much pressure on them. But I've never known Prince Philip to apologise for a remark, and I remember once he wandered over after he'd said to an Aboriginal leader, "Do you still throw spears at each other?" And I saw him do this in Australia in 2002, and the next day he came over. It made front pages all over the world. And he just wandered over and said, "The trouble with you is you've got no sense of humour, a complete absence of humour." So he wasn't going to apologise.
His retirement from public duties came in 2017 with a send-off from the Royal Marines. Whatever the faults, his 60 years of public service was admired by many people. While their marriage was said to have had its ups and downs in the couple's younger years, Prince Philip remained dedicated and supportive to the Queen. She'll receive immense sympathy from a British public known to view her with respect and affection.
And now for the weather. Current conditions are partly cloudy skies with a gentle breeze of 9 miles per hour from the northeast. The temperature is 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves of 5 to 6 feet with northerly swells reaching 5 feet. The high surf advisory is in effect for mainly northern-facing coastlines. The weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis today says to expect mostly sunny skies. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a 20% or light chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:25 p.m. Sunrise tomorrow at 5:58 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.